You wake up every morning feeling exhausted. Sit through hours of lectures, drowning in assignments, memorizing information just to forget it after the test. You're constantly reminded that your future depends on your grades. No mistakes allowed. For millions of students, including myself, this is a reality. The current model of education often feels like a factory assembly line, pushing students through a rigid system that only benefits a few people. To understand this, however, we have to look at where it came from. The education model that we use today was designed during the Industrial Revolution, where success was measured through discipline, uniformity, and repetition. Because as Ken Robinson affirmed some years ago, the goal was to produce obedient workers, not creative thinkers. But the problem is, we don't live in an industrial world anymore, not like how we used to. In the past, memorization made sense because information wasn't as easily accessible. Today, we have Google, AI, and unlimited resources at our fingertips. In the past, everyone worked factory or office jobs with very repetitive tasks. Today, automation and AI are taking over these jobs, while careers that require problem-solving, creativity, and adaptability are in a much higher demand. Yet schools still measure success through standardized tests like SATs, A-levels, the BAU exams here in Spain, GCSEs. The world has evolved, but our schools, they're still stuck in the past. But then, why? Why hasn't it changed? Why hasn't it evolved? One reason could be that older generations who, quote unquote, survived the system, claim that school was hard for me too, and I turned out fine. This just shows that they have failed to acknowledge that the times have changed. Or another reason could be that changing the system will require massive policy changes which a lot of officials are reluctant to make because they're politically risky or even expensive. And that makes me think, it's not just about tradition or about education anymore. It's about power, money. And is that really what our education should be about? But setting that aside, we as students are expected to excel, in my case, all 8 subjects we take. Yet no one seems to realize how overwhelming that really is. Here, we don't have an exam at the end of the year. We have multiple exams all along the school year. If you add up all of these exams, it comes to about 50 exams in less than 8 months, which I believe is absurd. And what happens if a student does struggle? They're immediately labelled as slow, lazy, or humiliated in front of their peers. A kind of humiliation that stays with them for a large part of their academic life. And for a lot of people, all of their lives, period. And all of this, instead of bits of support that can be as simple as a few words of comfort, an I'm here, I can help you, or some techniques to help you study, to help manage the stress. But the system doesn't want to acknowledge this, does it? Think about how many entrepreneurs, scientists, artists, all failed in traditional learning models because the system wasn't made for them. Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison, they all failed school. And look at how much potential they had. Look at all they accomplished. But the system doesn't like to acknowledge these exceptions. Because acknowledging these exceptions would mean that the system is outdated, that it's wrong. And no one likes to admit that they're wrong. A more up-to-date example, however, would be me. I've always had problems with focusing in class. Everything was too technical, too theoretical. I didn't understand it. I was often called lazy or just set to the side because I couldn't catch up with my class. I did, however, end up being diagnosed with ADHD last year. And there was 2 main measures that were set into place to help me do my exams. The first one, it did help. It was a bit of extra time at the end of the exam. And this shows that we are moving in the right direction. But the other? The other was to have a larger font. The baseline is schools are not prepared to accommodate neurodivergent people or people with different cognitive abilities, be it higher IQs or lower IQs. And the thing is, it's even worse for us. Negative school experiences impact us twice as much as it does to our neurotypical peers. So then, why? Why can't we keep going forwards? But let's talk about support again, or rather, lack of it. We're supposed to be juggling social struggles, our education, family issues, and personal development. Because like everyone says, these are the most important years of your life. Yet how much of our education actually teaches us how to manage this stress, how to manage our emotions, how to differentiate them, or how to be able to mix them? Sadly, a lot of schools don't provide adequate counselling services. And if students do reach out and do open up to them, they're often met with dismissive responses such as, "You just need to manage your time better. Oh, everyone goes through this. You'll be fine once exams are over." But these phrases don't help. They dismiss the real problem. And they keep forcing these students into a harmful mentality that says failure equals worthlessness. And is that really what we want for our future generations? There has to be a change. The world has evolved. We must change the way we look at it. Not just teachers or government officials, but also students and parents. We all have to contribute for change to be able to be made. And there are ways to make things better. Less focus on memorization, more focus on real, practical skills like this event. Different ways for students to express the things learned in class, not just standardized tests. Things like presentations, essays, even portfolios. Accessible counselors that want to help us. These are all ways that can make it better. And I'm not denying, things are changing. We're moving forwards little by little. New laws about education are being grafted up as we speak, probably. Students are starting to look at the bigger picture, not just that, is that going to give me a better grade or a worse one? And teachers are also starting to notice that we can't go on like this. We need to embrace a more student-centered model, a model that teaches us how to manage the stress, how to manage our emotions, how to grow, how to not see failure as a bad thing and see it as a part of growth, as well as everything else that has to be taught, like maths or literature. That way, we can help teenagers, we can help our students. We can create a new generation that wants to learn, that is inspired, that values knowledge. Because we want teenagers to thrive, not just survive. So I leave you all with one simple question. Are we ready to evolve?